All right, let's move to, I don't know what else there is to say about this. I mean, we have there doesn't seem to be any type of plan. We have 50,000 dead in New York. We have managed at least to flatten the curve enough everywhere that we haven't overrun our healthcare system. But beyond that, we're in exactly the same place we were 6 weeks ago.
So, Sam, I'm curious, what was your take on the numbers yesterday that Cuomo released? Because I thought that they were pretty staggering in terms of that sample size of 3,000 supermarket workers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Just how 21% of the ones tested in New York City had the antibodies. So that's 1.7 million people if you multiply it. But who knows if that's a representative sample, but it's certainly higher than much higher, multiples higher than the 250K cases that are recorded, confirmed.
In fact, I spoke to an epidemiologist today, this morning. It's not something I do every day, right? I should just say, for interview. And his perspective on that is that sample is not a great sample to take to get these to extrapolate those numbers, but he does think it's probably close to 15% in New York. In his mind, it's anywhere from 5 to 15% across the country. No matter where you are, it's probably around 5%. Even if you're in a rural area, 5%, maybe a little bit less. 15% would be the high end in New York. And that's great, except for it doesn't matter until we get to 60 or 70%. And in terms of herd immunity. So if you're talking about New York, you can easily do a back of the envelope figure on this. If you get whatever it is in New York at this point, like 15 something thousand deaths with 15%, well, you multiply that times 6, and that's what you would end up at the end of it in New York. And presumably that's if you can make sure that you're protecting the most vulnerable who are most susceptible to dying. And it also makes sure that you're able to amortize those deaths out and those illnesses out and those infections out so that nothing overwhelms the medical system. But the threshold for overwhelming the medical system in other states and in other in municipalities and rural areas is probably lower. And so you need to flatten it even more there in some respects to get to that 60 or 70%. And he said, like, it's, if you can get to a vaccine in 18 months, which is an if, that's a better scenario than trying to get to 60 or 70%, because we may not be able to get to 60 or 70% without overwhelming our healthcare system. And when we it's one thing to say, like, I'm not going to get any, elective surgeries for a 3-week period, or we're able to, pull back on certain, semi-elective surgeries. But if that's the case for over, 18 months through what will be the normal flu epidemic that we get each year, probably less because people are staying home, but it would still be elevated numbers. I mean, that's the problem. So